and it's come to our attention here in Houston. It's being run on people a little more frequently than we normally see. It's not unique to Houston, but we've seen variations of this scam in dozens of states across the nation. In some, criminals are impersonating local law enforcement officials. In others, they're impersonating federal law officials. The callers are threatening and sound official. They often provide a name or badge number of a law enforcement or court official to make the scam believable. They're calling people portraying themselves to be me, Gary Blankenship, the United States Marshal. They're quoting using the name of an authentic federal judge, referring people to these websites for our official websites to verify we are who we are. These people are not people that are representatives of the federal government. Some of the scammers have very high-tech electronic means that they're using where when you look at your caller ID, it reflects the United States Marshal Service, the United States District Courts, and these numbers are spoofed to make it look like they're coming from an official source when in fact many of these numbers are offshore, not even in the United States of America. The tactic is called spoofing, and it's become very common with these scammers. But whether they say you missed your local jury service or federal jury service, in each and every case is a fraud designed to trick you out of your hard-earned cash. We cannot stress this enough. No law enforcement official will ever call you by the phone and demand money. Let me repeat that. No law enforcement official will call you on the phone and demand money. The best way to keep from being a victim is don't make yourself a victim. Call. We need your help. Let loved ones, let friends, neighbors know about this scam, especially our senior citizens, as they're often targeted and victimized by these scams. Never provide personal information or payments over the phone to an unsolicited caller. When in doubt, check it out. Attempt to verify the caller on the other end. We have with us today Miss Granger, a recent victim of this scam artist. And Miss Granger will talk to you a little bit about how realistic these people sound. She's very well educated and did her research and was still scammed out of her mortgage payment by these people. Remember, if you believe you've been a victim of this, you know someone that's been a victim of this jury duty scam, you can report it to your local law enforcement agency. You can report it to the FBI. Our colleagues with the FBI are here. The FBI website for internet crimes is www.ic3.gov. That is where the FBI investigates internet crimes. This website is online, and you can report to the FBI or your local law enforcement agency. Ms. Granger, would you like to say a few words?
I'm really happy to be here because part of it I was a little embarrassed, and I really didn't want to do this, but I thought about it, and I'm not gullible, right? I'm pretty educated, but these guys were very good. They started with a phone call saying that I had missed my federal jury duty summons. They were able to give me a former address where I lived, which made me believe that it didn't forward to my new home. We talked about it. They said that the warrants were active, but that the judge put some stipulations that if I paid the fine and then show up at the Marshal Service, they would send me to the financial office after signing all the paperwork to get the money back. When I finished calling them, I went on the website, called the phone number, and sure enough, the number they called me from represented itself as U.S. District Court. At that point, it became real. When I would use the prompts, it would take me to the names that the gentleman had given me. I told him that I did not have the money at the time. He said that he could defer it until I got paid, and I would get the money back. I shared with him it's my mortgage. He said I could go to jail. I didn't believe him. I went on the website. It says you can be held in contempt of court for not showing up. So I feel like I did my due diligence. I ferreted this thing out, and he was still able to get me to the money packs. He said it's called Pay at Kiosk, and there's a kiosk at the U.S. Marshals. I'm law-abiding. I don't know anything about the U.S. Marshal Service, and that if I got that particular card, And when I'm on the phone with him buying the card, he says, where it says PAK, that means pay at kiosk. And give us the numbers. We're going to verify them. Once we do, we can't take any money off of it until you show up here and show us the actual card. Turns out that wasn't true. As soon as I gave him the numbers on the phone, it was a done deal. They stayed with me on the phone until I got in the U.S. Marshal's office, because they then said there were 2 charges they didn't tell me about. That was another $980. And at that point, I lost it and said, just arrest me. So I showed up here at the U.S. Marshal's office expecting to be arrested, and turns out that it wasn't that at all. So this is really, really, really intricate stuff. You know, they're professionals at what they do. And so we have to be careful. I had no idea. I'm law-abiding. I don't know that you don't pay money over the phone. I've paid tickets over the phone. And the fact that he had information about me, he knew that I was exempt from state jury because I take care of elderly parents. So he knew things about me that made me think that this thing may be legitimate.
So how much money did they request the first time?
$990.
So how much total did you give them?
$990.
So it was just the first time?
Yes, because when I was coming to the office, he said, he sent me to Deputy Director Wallace, which turned out to be a real deputy director with a badge number. And I was speaking with him, and he said, well, he didn't tell you about the additional charges, which was failure to appear and contempt, he went on. And he said, that's another $980 that you're going to need, because if you go in the office without it, you're going to be arrested. And I said, well, I'm prepared to go and be arrested because I don't have another dime to give you. And he said, well, that's 6 months in jail. And I said, well, then I'll go rest for 6 months because I don't have another dime to give you. And then when I got up here and was on the phone back with the original gentleman, he said, well, if you can come up with at least 400 right now. And then that's when I kind of went nuts, and I went, I pay my bills, I pay my taxes, I'm law-abiding, and I'm going to get locked up because I didn't get a piece of paper. And that's when, of course, the marshals came in, and I crashed their Christmas party, and they helped me sort this thing out. Because when one of the marshals got on the phone with him, of course, he hung up. And then when we called back, we were still getting his name and that he's with probation. But, of course, he wasn't answering the phone.
If it was the first time that you received a call like that?
About a week and a half before I actually came here, I was at work, and it was an 816 number originally, and then I didn't answer it, and then there was a call right behind it, which was a 476 number, and I answered it. And at that point, he said who he was, that I'd failed to do jury duty, and you know, my initial reaction was, well, I don't have any money, take me to jail. Well, ma'am, you'll lose your job, it's 6 months, it's federal, you know. And then he read some judge stipulations. If I do this, this, and this, it would all be lifted, I would get my money back, and everything would be fine.
What was his
And
tone
that's-
of voice?
He sounded like a country boy from Georgia. It was a lot of, you know, I'm sorry, ma'am, and this is the way it is, ma'am, and, you know, the judge doesn't know, ma'am, why you don't have the, you know, your summons, ma'am. I mean, a lot of ma'aming, a lot of thank youing, and so on and so forth. I even said to them, this sounds like a scam. And he said, I assure you it's not. And that's when he gave me the Deputy Director Wallace's name. When I went on the website, it exists. Every name he gave me existed. So at that point, I don't want to go to jail. I do what I'm supposed to do. And he was able to tell me a former address that, well, ma'am, didn't it go to such and such Dovedale? And I went, I haven't lived there in 6 months. Well, the judge can't know that that's why you didn't get your summons. And he even gave me a date. It came to you on November 23rd. And I'm like, you know, I never received it. So he had a lot of information on me. And he didn't ask for debit cards or anything. He said the only way to do this is the pay at kiosk. And clearly it's money pack. So they even gave an acronym to the green dot card.
So what happened to him? Does anybody have any idea who he is?
No.
Or this person is still just on the run?
Mm-hmm. Because once when I got in the marshal's office, I guess he didn't think I would show up there. And at that point I went, well, because the other gentleman that got on the phone, when I said I don't have the 980, well, he got on some walkie-talkie and said, well, there's an unruly, uncooperative person, and she's going to come to the marshal's office, and I want her arrested. And I said, and he said that I was Caucasian. I said, no, I'm African-American, so you'll know who to look for. And at that point, I walked upstairs, and he said second floor. So I went there first, and then I went, wait, the marshal's on the 10th floor. Walked in, asked the young lady for the director's name. She said yes. And then we got on the phone asking me for more money. I just lost it at that point. And then the marshals came to rescue and said, this isn't real. And when one of the ladies got on the phone, he immediately hung up.
What did the caller ID say on your phone?
It was just a phone number. It said 476 and a series of numbers. But what was interesting was I went on the website and I dialed the number from the website. and it had the same message that his phone did. It said, "Thank you for calling U.S. District Courts." And then it takes you to prompt 3 for warrants and probation. When I hit prompt 3, it went to his voicemail. So all of it legitimized it right back to him.
How long were you on this phone call?
Well, there were 3 or 4 phone calls throughout the first day. There were 2 phone calls, and then on the morning of the 15th, he had called the night before and left a message saying, "I need you to get in touch with me. We talked about getting this done today." I left a message on his voicemail saying, "I'm not trying to go to jail. I want to work this out." And he called me back maybe 5 minutes later, and he literally stayed on the phone with me from the time I left my house, went to the bank, went to Kroger, bought the money pack, and up until I walked in the door. So literally it was about a 45-minute phone call. He said, "I'm going to put my headset on," and every once in a while I was driving, I would say, "Are you still there?" And he says, "Yes, ma'am, I'm just on another call." So from the time he said, "Call me when you're leaving your house." And I did. And he stayed on the phone with me from that time to the time I walked in the marshal's office.
Describe, if you will, what a money pack is and how is
It's,
that negotiable?
I've never seen one before, but apparently it's a green dot card that you buy in the gift card section. And it says money, P-A-K, money pack. And you take the money to the counter and you tell them how much you want. He told me to put $500 on one card, $490 on the other. They put it on the card. The cards cost $5 each. And then there's a scratch number in the back. And once the money's put on it, you scratch the back, and that's the series of numbers. And that's how you would transfer, I guess, money from that to someone else's card. So it looks like a green paper card that says money pack.
So it's a vehicle to transfer money.
Yes.
In a sense.
Yes.
With little paper trail beyond the card.
Well, on the card, though, it says that in order to have this card, I have the cards with me. I brought them with me, and it says both parties have to be willing to have their information available. But it did say, beware of scam. If you scratch this and give the numbers, once you give out the numbers, there's no way to reverse the money. Unfortunately, I didn't read that until I got in here.
Do you
So.
think you were targeted? You said that he knew
Well,
about his personal info.
That's what's kind of frightening because he had some information. He had my former address. He also was I didn't tell them I was exempt from jury duty because of my parents. He told me I was exempt. He said, "You were exempt from jury duty, but that's for the state, not for the federal." So he had information. I mean, he asked me, "Is this Tanya Granger?" So he had my name. Yeah.
I have a question for Mr. Blankenship. How is that possible? How can anybody have that kind of information from somebody else?
Because they do elaborate research on their victims. This is a very elaborate scheme. And the FBI, our colleagues with the FBI are here, they're actively investigating this. But we just had about 35 defendants that were arrested in a scam just like this a few months ago where they portrayed themselves to be IRS. And those defendants are pending trial right now. But some of these cases are very hard to investigate. Like I said, what we want to emphasize is do not be a victim. Don't make yourself a victim, because the investigative side of these cases are very hard, because many times they lead to foreign countries where we may not have jurisdiction or extradition agreements, things of that nature, to be able to bring these people to justice. So,
Do you think that guy was acting alone, or is it just a...
well, I believe you
There were
talked
at
to several
least two different people,
voices.
unless he could impersonate very well. When toward the end, when he said, "Okay, I've got the information, and it's not processing fast enough. I don't want you to get here before it processes completely, or the warrants will be active." He said, "Let me connect you to Deputy District Wallace." And then the phone clicked, another person picked up, and it was a completely different voice. Now, unless he was impersonating the voices, it sounded like two very different people to me.
But sir, what kind of charges does this person face when caught?
Well, there's wire fraud under the federal side. There's the theft. There's fraud. The U.S. Attorney's Office will look at a case like this and find the best charge that applies. But there is a list of federal charges and or state charges that can be applied to this case.
So it's safe to say that person would be locked up for a long time.
Well, a lot of that would depend on the amounts. Normally, what they try to do is we try to find as many victims as we can. And again, if you've been a victim of this, please come forward to make the report to your local law enforcement and to the FBI's website. Bring up the FBI, and that's why the more money we can find, certainly the longer we would be able to put these people away.
Thank you, Marshall. Hey guys, Shauna Dunlap, Special Agent, spokesperson for the Houston office of the FBI. So to go back to your question, rarely do these individuals target only one person. They're playing the odds. So they're making dozens, oftentimes hundreds, maybe even thousands of calls in 1 week, knowing that a majority or a lot of folks aren't going to fall for it. But if they get 10% that fall for it, they're still making a good amount of money. So typically they have this scheme set up. As the Marshal said, they do a lot of research. And in the world we live in today, this information is available online. You guys know because you guys do your own background checks online. You can pay for certain limited information online. So they get this information out there through the internet, through other research, sometimes through paid means, $9.99, something like that. And they're able to get enough information to make it appear real. And that's what they do. And as the Marshal said, we've been seeing this for years, and they just keep making variations of the same scam, and they just get better and better at it. If it doesn't work one way, they alter it and try another way. So what we do at the FBI, obviously we work with our colleagues. We worked with the Harris County Clerk's Office a few months ago when they saw a similar scam targeting local jury duty personnel and persons, and using names of local clerk's office personnel and local judges to threaten folks and make their scam seem real. Now this one, they're using names of federal law enforcement officers and federal judges and things of that nature. Again, we've seen it around the country, so this is not unique to Houston, but we ask that anyone who believes that they've been a victim or targeted for this scam, they should report it online to a website, www.ic3.gov. That stands for the Internet Crime Complaint Center. And what we do there is we'll aggregate these complaints. We'll try to group them together, either with money loss or from state, or that all seem like they're coming from the same individual or individuals who are perpetrating this crime, and we'll do the best we can to try to move forward towards a federal prosecution if we can. But again, as the Marshal stated, these can be very difficult cases to work. So the best defense is not to fall for it. So what we've seen when we turn to the media and yourselves to get this information out, we have good luck. And what often happens is once folks from the Houston, Harris County area start hanging up the phone on these people, they'll go elsewhere and they'll stop targeting our citizens. So that's where we need your help and the help of just the average citizen to spread this information to your friends, loved ones, and so forth. Unfortunately, these scams operate year-round, but it is the holiday, and this is the season when they try to use these scams even more because they know, folks are going to possibly fall for it.
By any chance, do you have any numbers about cases like this being reported recently in Houston area?
I can get you a case from Atlanta that was prosecuted earlier this year, and the individuals were sentenced. That particular scam, they were operating out of a prison system, so they were U.S. based, and we had some success with it. As the Marshal said, I believe it was just a couple of weeks ago that the U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern District of Texas, posted a press release on the IRS scam, which is a similar scam, just targeting and impersonating IRS officials, but also threatening folks, trying to scam them out of their money as well. And we were successful in moving forward on a prosecution against those individuals. So we do have success. I don't have specific numbers, but like I said, the numbers of the complaints are much higher than the prosecutions. So the best defense is not to fall for it.
Do you have any idea on the number of complaints? Like, are we talking dozens, hundreds?
I don't. I'd have to check back, but again, they cross multiple law enforcement agencies. So the sheriff's office has gotten complaints, local police department have gotten complaints. Some of the complaints have come into the marshals, some complaints come in through us, and some to the clerks and the judges' offices. So we know the number's much higher than any one agency's numbers. And typically they're underreported because, as the victim told you, they're embarrassed. So a lot of victims aren't as strong as she is, and they're concerned to come forward. They don't want to admit that they made a mistake and maybe that they were scammed. So she's speaking out to hopefully prevent others from having the same thing happen to them.
Is it mostly,
Hey.
Is it mostly cell phones, landlines? Is it mostly people of a certain age? Is it a certain demographic, or is it across the board?
We've seen it across the board. We see where we trace back, and oftentimes the calls are coming from overseas, but they're spoofing those phone numbers to make them appear as though they're U.S. lines. And we've also seen where it can be U.S. based. For example, the case out of Atlanta where they were operating out of the prison system. So it can be a number of things, and it just depends. We have more success if it's based in the U.S. with tracking them back. But again, the best defense is to just not fall for it. Law enforcement will not, the U.S. government doesn't take gift cards for payment on
Would there ever
crimes.
be an instance where the U.S. Marshal's Office contacts somebody legitimately for missing a jury duty summons or not responding to it, and how would they go about it?
Certainly. We will contact people that have not appeared for jury duty. It will be at the order of a federal judge if we go out and arrest someone. I promise you we will never demand money. When a federal judge issues an order to arrest for someone who did not appear for jury duty, which is not something that happens very often, the order is to bring that body before the court. Normally the judges want to talk to that person and find out why they did not. But again, we have to verify that the people receive notice. There's a lot of steps in place that we don't just go out and randomly arrest people. It's very unusual for the U.S. Marshals to go out and arrest someone. And at that point, it's already gotten to a federal judge, and the federal judge issues an order ordering us to bring that body before the court, not money, the body. Okay?
Sean, how complicated are these, the technologies that they use to scan, to get the phone to look and seem?
They can be very complicated, and we see different levels of sophistication. So clearly this particular group is a little more sophisticated than many we see. So it can be very challenging.
Is it a cyber investigation? What kind of investigation are you doing?
It would go across the board and incorporate a lot of different things depending on, the different technologies that they're using, wire fraud, things of that nature. So it's usually a little bit of a combination. Almost every crime that we work has some aspect of cyber connection to it.
Pam, can we get the spelling of